You know, I started making films when I was in my late 20s, and my first feature was called The Delta, and it was very much a gay story. It was not only a queer film, but it was about a young man in Memphis who was coming out and sort of trying to find himself. I think queer cinema at that point, of which there was a bit of a movement, was really a lot of films about people trying to find who they were in the world. And there were a lot of questions about identity and discovering oneself as a gay person and as a gay filmmaker was a big deal. I do not think it's insignificant that for me, this is the next film that I made about 12 to 14 years later with specifically gay characters in it. I am not alone in being a queer filmmaker who found myself on some level going back into some form of the closet with my work. Not to disavow that work, but to say that everything still encouraged me to tell different kinds of stories, starting with economics. The economics for queer cinema were not there, but also still a desire to assimilate, a desire to be part of something, a desire that was maybe more mainstream, an uncomfortableness with my sexuality, I would say still, and with that in my work. I find that this film, you know, it's called Keep the Lights On for a purpose. I think this is a film that encourages people to be transparent. For me, that was so important in my life. It was something that took a long time to get to the point that I was ready to be transparent with how I lived and the things that I saw in my relationships. I think the difference between queer cinema now and then is this film is not really about identity. There's a way in which being a gay person is so different than it was 20 years ago, and this film is a reflection of that. These characters are not ghettoized. They're part of a larger world, part of larger communities, overlapping communities, but still the issues are specific to them as characters. But I think that maybe this is a film that's more about a relationship than it is about necessarily specifically or only a sort of gay identity. And those are things that have shifted, and why I feel like there's a lot of people ready to tell these stories. The question are we able to?
And Zach, I wanted to ask you how you became involved in the project, how you were cast in this project.
First of all, text. Please feel free to text away. For those of you that don't know how to text, I'll show you after. We'll do it together out there, please. So I got this script, you know, from an agent, which is sort of a boring story, but I just fell in love with it. I think the way that Ira writes and the way that Mauricio writes, there's just a real honest voice to these characters, and I could feel the words coming out of my mouth. I got to sit down at lunch with Ira, and we just talked about our personal lives and you know, talked a little bit about the film. And then there was this sort of bizarre series of events where I went in and auditioned for him, and it just was one of those moments where I really felt like I understood. It was the scene, which actually isn't completely in the film anymore, but where I say to Eric at the end that, you know, I just can't live this kind of relationship when we're up at the house and I've gotten sober, and that I can't live like that anymore, what it's doing to my, you know, sense of self, my sense of serenity. And I think it's really the first time that he's able to be truly honest, whether he's right or wrong, you decide, but the first time he can be truly honest in this film. And I just loved that moment. And Ira was like, great, that's great. And I was like, great, I did it, I nailed it. But then he told me that he wanted me to make him a tape, so I made him a tape anyway, and then I got this email that was like, no, the tape's not very good. Sort of, right? That's sort of what he said. The tape wasn't great, he was like, stop looking at it. And then he called me. I was standing outside Yankee Stadium waiting to go to a baseball game, and he told me that I got this film, and it was, you know, one of the coolest moments. I know that's a very indulgent answer, but it's the truth. Go me.
I would just add to that, I was very lucky to get Zach to be in this film. What I was sort of saying to Zach was not to study the part, but to live it. And you know, I work with actors. I don't tend to rehearse I don't rehearse at all with the actors. They never read the script in front of another actor. I don't ever hear them say the lines. before we start shooting the film. It's a way to make a fictional film a form of documentary in a certain way, is that you want something to be happening in front of the camera that has never happened before and will never happen again. So what I was really saying to Zach was, I saw it in the first reading, and now if you study it, it becomes something else. It becomes something conscious, and I'm looking for something that is more instinctual and in a way unconscious, because that's what the camera captures. And I knew it was there, so I just said, stop. You got the part.
All right, we have a question from the audience.
Yeah, Casey, I always have a question. You probably have, I don't know how many decades of sobriety in the room tonight. We got a lot of clean, sober people in this room tonight, and thank you for making a film about keeping the lights on, because it gets pretty dark, so thank you. Zach, and by the way, you're great on damages. By the way, I just got to give you a plug for damages. It's a great show. You can play with them close. I'm very jealous. My question to you is, crystal meth is kind of destroying New York as this PCB is coming back to New York, and I was recently in New York and went to a CMA meeting at 7:45 in the morning. There were 150 people in the room. How much of the film for preparation, because I know it takes through the 90s at a time, and then into, I guess, 2006, 2007 is when it ended. How much of it did you, friends, associates, personal experience, reading about it, attending 12-step meetings, etc., to prepare to get the true essence? Because I lived that life, and I've been clean sober a long time, and I mean, I can feel it, and you start to glamorize it, and it always starts out a little fun, and then it's fun and trouble, and then it's all trouble. And you did such an incredible job of doing that. So how did you prep for that?
Thank you. I think, you know, the performance was a result of, sorry, that's very nice of you, thanks. It was a result of, you know, really a honest story. You know, these were experiences that people had really lived through, and Ira really bared his soul into that script. And so it's surprising to hear, but there is a lot of it that just comes from reading the words. You know, there's a community I know that exists that, you know, I've been able to sort of mix in with through the making of this film, and I was able to learn a lot about addiction and strengths and weaknesses, and I guess there were two sides of it. You know, one thing that I had to prepare was the sort of physical act of using the drugs, and we had somebody come in and show us how to do that, and also the sort of the thought process. That was something that I had to draw from some books that I was able to read, sort of moment to moment when you're running around in a hotel room like that. What are you actually thinking about? You know, where is your mind? So that sort of preparation, the technical side of it, you know, I was able to draw, you know, from outside sources. And then I guess there's the other side of it, which is that I had to find a way to make a character that I think a lot of people experience in this film as sort of the bad guy, the antagonist. You know, I had to find a way to make him lovable. And in order to do that, I had to really understand this idea that addiction is a disease. You know, and that this wasn't a person that was consciously making choices to go out and smoke crack in order to, you know, because he didn't want to be with his partner. This was somebody that didn't have any power in that choice. And once I was sort of educated in that area of the character, it really opened up all these doors for me for what I was able to do, because I didn't have to think about him making the choices. The choice was sort of made for him, you know, and everything else was sort of his way, fighting his way back and trying to say, no, I do love you, I do want to be a part of this world, but this is really the only way that I can do it comfortably. I hope that makes sense, but it's sort of the way that I found my way into it.